Some days the human brain just calls in sick, but for a special few, that day is every day, and it's always in public. We've collected 101 of the most baffling, hilarious, and facepalm-worthy moments of pure absurdity from across the US. These aren't just mistakes. They are masterpieces of terrible judgment. 1. What's the most brazen thing you can do at an all-you-can-eat buffet? A woman in Tennessee decided to find out by stuffing a literal garbage bag full of fried shrimp and crab legs, then trying to casually walk out. When confronted, she had the audacity to complain about the quality of the food she was actively stealing. A masterclass in having zero shame. 2. There's a fine line between confidence and delusion, and a man in Texas erased it with a Sharpie. After getting caught trying to pay for a $40 meal with a laughably fake $100 bill, he tried to convince the police that the bill was real because he had drawn it himself and was, in his words, a very good artist. 3. Imagine you're a cop who pulls over a guy for erratic driving. You walk up to the car and discover he's steering with his feet, because both of his hands are busy double-fisting two massive burritos. When asked what he was thinking, he calmly explained he was just really hungry. You can't even be mad, that's just impressive commitment. 4. An entire town's water supply in Kansas was briefly threatened by one man's bizarre act of rebellion. He was arrested for climbing their main water tower and dumping in several gallons of his own urine and a massive bag of glitter. His motive remains unknown, but he single-handedly created the world's most fabulous public health scare. 5. Pro tip for aspiring criminals. Maybe arrange your getaway vehicle before the crime. 2 robbers in California successfully held up a store, ran outside, and only then realized neither of them had a car. Their genius solution? They called an Uber to their own home address and were arrested when the driver recognized them from the news report on the radio. 6. A man in a public park was seen trying to plug his phone charger directly into a sprinkler head on the lawn. He stood there for several minutes, getting increasingly frustrated that the outlet wasn't working, while dozens of onlookers were simply too baffled to intervene. 7. A man in downtown San Francisco decided the public plaza needed a better feng shui. He spent an entire afternoon attempting to move a 500-pound concrete bench by himself, using only a small crowbar and sheer determination. He succeeded only in pivoting it 3 inches and blocking a major pedestrian walkway. 8. A true moment of technological confusion in a Chicago electronics store. A woman spent several minutes trying to get a Redbox movie rental machine to heat up her burrito. She kept placing it on the machine's various surfaces, getting increasingly frustrated that it wasn't working, creating a moment of surrealist theater for everyone in the checkout line. 9. A man at a public library, annoyed that the person next to him was tapping their pen, didn't ask them to stop. Instead, he stood up, pulled the fire alarm, and forced the evacuation of the entire 3-story building, later telling firefighters he had to do something about the noise. 10. This one is a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be inconvenienced. A man in Florida, wanting to go fishing but finding his truck blocked in, decided to use the company forklift he was operating to lift his own truck over the other cars, drive it out, and gently place it on the street. He was, of course, fired immediately. 11. Sometimes, the universe delivers justice so perfectly, it feels like it was scripted. A man in Washington, D.C. successfully stole a GPS unit out of an unmarked police car. He was caught less than an hour later because the police simply used the GPS tracking feature on the other stolen items he had in his possession. A true 4D chess move. 12. In a moment of either spatial defiance or pure mathematical failure, a driver in a packed Chicago parking garage attempted to park their sedan vertically, nose down, between 2 other cars. The result was a bizarre automotive sculpture that even the tow truck driver had to stop and photograph before figuring out how to remove it. 13. The aisles of Walmart have seen it all, but they probably weren't ready for this. A couple in Alabama set up a full-blown picnic, complete with a checkered blanket and wicker basket, in the middle of the main grocery aisle. They then got audibly annoyed when shoppers' carts disturbed their romantic and deeply inconvenient meal. 14. Let's talk about stretching a return policy to its breaking point. In late February, a man in Minnesota marched into a home improvement store and tried to return his Christmas tree for a full refund. It was a completely brown, bone-dry fire hazard, and his reason for return was simply, it died. 15. You can't do a list like this without a truly spectacular Florida man entry. A guy tried to pay for his drive-thru order by literally throwing a live, 3-foot alligator through the service window. The cashier, understandably, did not accept this form of payment, and the man was later charged with assault with a deadly reptile. 16. Finding the street parking full, a woman in Chicago decided to create her own spot by driving her smart car directly through the front doors of a department store and parking it in the women's shoe department. She was apprehended while trying on a pair of sandals. 17. There are certain places you should probably try to stay awake. A defendant in an Oregon courtroom fell so deeply asleep during his own embezzlement trial that he began snoring loud enough to interrupt the prosecutor. The judge had to bang the gavel just to wake him up so he could hear how much trouble he was in. 18. When choosing a disguise, the primary goal is usually, to disguise yourself. Two geniuses in Iowa failed this basic concept when they tried to rob a convenience store with clear, see-through plastic bags over their heads. The clerk and the security cameras got a perfect high-definition look at both of their faces. 19. Ever feel like you're going into battle at the DMV? A man in Pennsylvania took it literally, showing up to get his driver's license photo taken while wearing a full, head-to-toe suit of medieval armor. He argued for 20 minutes that the helmet was part of his daily attire, before finally and reluctantly removing it. 20. A man in Florida, wanting to fix a large pothole in front of his house, decided to do it himself. Instead of asphalt, he used several bags of quick-drying cement. He not only filled the pothole but also managed to completely seal the neighborhood's main sewer drain, causing a street-wide sewage backup that took city crews 2 days to fix. 21. Why use hedge trimmers when you have a perfectly good can of gasoline and a lighter? That was the logic of a homeowner in Oregon who thought the fastest way to trim his overgrown bushes was to just light them on fire. It was in fact a very fast way to also set his porch and the side of his house on fire. 22. The NYC subway is a theater of the strange, but this performance deserved a standing ovation for its audacity. A man boarded a packed train during rush hour, set up a full-size propane grill, and began cooking sausages for sale. The train was evacuated due to the smoke, but not before he reportedly sold two. 23. Here's a beautiful story about next-level optimism. A woman in New Jersey held up a grocery line by trying to pay for her $50 cart with a single Powerball lottery ticket. Not a winning ticket. A ticket for a drawing that was happening later that night. She seemed genuinely shocked it wasn't accepted as currency. 24. When a blizzard hits, some people see a crisis. This guy saw an opportunity for personalized service. During a massive snowstorm in Buffalo, a man was arrested for attempting to rob a snowplow driver at knife point, demanding that the driver clear his private driveway immediately, ahead of all the actual public roads. 25. A man in Florida, wanting to slow down traffic on his residential street, decided to take matters into his own hands. He lay down in the middle of the road, positioning himself as a human speed bump. He was surprised when the first car simply drove around him while calling the police. 26. A true legal scholar, this one. A woman at a Utah Science Museum was caught by a security guard trying to lick a massive multi-ton block of ancient rock salt. When the guard pointed to the giant "Do Not Touch" sign, she calmly replied, "It doesn't say do not lick." He was too stunned to argue. 27. Who needs a car when you have a lazy boy? Police in Wisconsin pulled a man over for a DUI while he was cruising down a public road in a motorized armchair. It was fully equipped with a stereo, cup holders, and a small engine. He was on his way to a bar, presumably to get even more comfortable. 28. He risked it all for the gram. A teenager in San Diego, wanting the perfect selfie, jumped a fence at the zoo and climbed into the enclosure of a 150-year-old Galapagos tortoise. He posed dramatically while the ancient reptile just sat there, completely unimpressed, having presumably seen dumber things in its long life. 29. A man at an amusement park ticket booth tried to pay for his family's entry using a giant bag of arcade tokens from a different arcade across town. He argued passionately for 10 minutes that since both were forms of fun money, they should be interchangeable. 30. As we all know, the Founding Fathers fought and died for the right to a half-priced latte. At least, that's what a woman in a Seattle coffee shop seemed to believe when she tried using a coupon that expired in 2017. When the barista politely refused, she began screaming that he was violating her constitutional rights. 31. How do you completely fail a robbery? Well, you could get caught. Or you could do what a guy in Texas did and accidentally lock yourself inside the very mobile phone store you were trying to rob. He was forced to call 911 on himself just so the police could come and let him out, to arrest him. 32. Some people use social media to share vacation photos. A man in Florida used it to live stream himself breaking into cars and stealing things. He gave his followers a real-time tutorial on his crimes, which made it incredibly easy for the police, who were also watching his stream, to find and arrest him mid-broadcast. 33. Airport security has seen it all, or so they thought. A traveler in California was stopped when the X-ray machine revealed he had taped several ninja throwing stars to the inside of his laptop. His apparent strategy was that they would simply blend in with the circuitry. They did not. 34. You have to admire the sheer, unshakable confidence. A man in a Missouri courtroom, acting as his own lawyer in a drug trafficking case, tried to pay a court fee using a baggie of cocaine as currency. He was genuinely surprised when the clerk did not accept it, and new charges were immediately added. 35. A woman in Ohio, when pulled over for going 90 in a 55 zone, delivered a truly galaxy-brain legal argument. She told the officer he couldn't give her a ticket because she wasn't driving. She was traveling, and therefore not subject to commercial vehicle laws. The officer and the law disagreed. 36. There are moments of simple confusion, and then there's this. A woman at a Petco was politely asked to leave after she put her toddler into the self-service dog washing station. She apparently assumed it was a cheap and convenient way to give him a bath. It was neither. 37. When you're trying to hide from the police, subtlety is key. A man in Colorado spectacularly failed this concept by trying to camouflage himself in a pile of autumn leaves. It might have worked if he weren't 6'3" and wearing a bright neon green jacket. 38. This is a beautiful, short story about underestimating your opponent. A shoplifter in Chicago tried to steal a cart full of goods, but was stopped at the door by the store's greeter, an 80-year-old woman. The thief tried to push past her, tripped over her walker, and was held down until police arrived. 39. A man on a crowded Chicago commuter train, wanting to get off between stations, pulled the emergency brake. His justification when confronted by furious passengers and transit authorities? He had spotted his favorite taco truck out the window and didn't want to miss out on lunch, causing a 2-hour delay for hundreds of people. 40. Sometimes the problem solves itself. Police in Maine responded to a call about a man passed out on a lawn. They arrived to find the suspect asleep on a pile of stolen mail, using a stolen Amazon package as a pillow. He essentially delivered himself to justice. 41. The American work ethic is legendary, but maybe this is taking it too far. An employee at a home improvement store was fired after he was caught on camera trying to use a running chainsaw to open a sealed paint can. The results were as colorful and destructive as you can imagine. 42. Here's a pro tip for future bank robbers. Check your local holidays. A would-be thief in Massachusetts meticulously planned his heist, only to show up on Columbus Day and find the bank completely closed. He was seen on camera trying to pry the doors open before giving up and walking away in disgust. 43. This is a story of pure, unfiltered desperation. A woman in a Pennsylvania library was caught trying to dry her soaking wet socks by putting them inside the library's only microwave, which she had placed next to the "Quiet Please" sign. The smell alone was a crime against humanity. 44. Why pay for concert tickets when you can just become part of the venue? That was the logic of two men in Idaho who tried to sneak into a music festival by camouflaging themselves as a large bush. They were discovered when a security guard noticed the bush was slowly walking towards the main stage. 45. You have to appreciate a criminal who respects social etiquette. A man in Pittsburgh walked into a bank, waited patiently in line for 15 minutes, and when he finally got to the teller, handed her a note that read, "This is a robbery." He was arrested while still standing there, having followed all the rules of queuing. 46. In a moment of culinary genius, a man in New Orleans tried to deep fry a frozen turkey in his tiny apartment kitchen, without thawing it first. The resulting grease fire and explosion blew out his windows and led to a full building evacuation. A truly unforgettable Thanksgiving meal for everyone. 47. A man outside a busy concert venue, frustrated by the lack of parking, simply got out of his car in the middle of a traffic lane, left the keys on the dashboard, and walked away, assuming someone from the city would eventually come and park it for him. They did, in an impound lot. 48. Let's talk about misreading the room. A man showed up for jury duty in Illinois wearing a t-shirt that said in giant letters, "I'm guilty." He insisted it was just a funny shirt, but the judge was not amused and held him in contempt of court for trying to get out of his civic duty. 49. In a scene straight out of a cartoon, a porch pirate in Arizona stole a package, sprinted to his getaway car, and then spent a full minute frantically trying to unlock the door of the wrong car, which was parked right next to his own. The car's actual owner watched the entire thing from their window. 50. Here's a prime example of American ingenuity meeting public nuisance. A man in Arizona, wanting to wash his pickup truck but not wanting to pay for a car wash, simply drove it directly into the city's largest decorative fountain and started soaping it up. His defense when police arrived? The water was free. 51. What happens when you combine modern banking with caveman anger? A man in Pennsylvania tried to deposit a crumpled check into an ATM. When the machine rejected it, he didn't smooth it out. No, he proceeded to punch the ATM screen repeatedly, then tried to fight the machine, as if it would physically submit and accept his check. 52. The customer is always right. Mantra met its match in Arizona. A woman tried to return a dead houseplant for a full refund. When the manager asked how she cared for it, she proudly explained she'd been watering it exclusively with Mountain Dew, because it's got what plants crave. 53. Choosing your getaway vehicle is crucial. A robber in California learned this the hard way after he held up a convenience store and made his escape on a tiny pink children's bicycle with streamers on the handlebars that he had stolen from a little girl's front yard just moments before. He didn't get far. 54. A quick one for the books. A man in a public laundromat was seen trying to iron his shirt while he was still wearing it. He was pressing the hot iron directly against his own chest, wincing with each pass, seemingly unaware of a much easier, less painful alternative. 55. A homeowner in Georgia decided the best way to remove a stubborn tree stump from his front yard was with dynamite. The good news, it worked. The bad news, it launched the 200-pound stump directly into his neighbor's parked car, which then rolled into their swimming pool. A perfect strike. 56. Public transit has rules for a reason. One of those reasons is a man in Philadelphia who tried to board a crowded city bus during rush hour while carrying a full-sized unplugged refrigerator on his back. He argued with the driver that it counted as his personal baggage. 57. A man at a public swimming pool was seen climbing to the top of the highest diving board. But instead of diving, he tried to gently lower himself into the water feet first, seemingly believing he could just step off the edge and land softly. The resulting belly flop echoed through the entire complex. 58. Some tourists just need to be reminded they aren't in a petting zoo. In Yellowstone National Park, a man was filmed trying to pet a massive 2,000-pound bison, cooing at it like it was a golden retriever. Nature's bouncer promptly reminded him about personal space by tossing him several feet in the air. 59. A woman at a drive-thru car wash in California refused to roll up her window. When the operator frantically motioned for her to do so, she yelled back that she had paid for an interior and exterior wash. She then had the nerve to complain to the manager that the soap was ruining her leather seats. 60. There's a time and a place for patriotic chants. A public library in Ohio during finals week is not one of them. A man stood up in the silent reading room and tried to start a loud USA, USA chant. He was defeated not by security, but by the collective, silent, furious glare of dozens of students. 61. Sometimes you just have to trust the signs. A driver in Oregon, frustrated by traffic, decided to take a shortcut over what he thought was a small road. It was, in fact, a very narrow pedestrian-only bridge. He managed to get his entire pickup truck perfectly wedged between the railings, blocking it for hours. 62. A man in Illinois tried to return a brand new, perfectly functional barbecue grill to the store. His official reason for the return, stated with a straight face to the manager, was that his steaks tasted too smoky. He fundamentally misunderstood the entire point of the product he had purchased. 63. The streets of New York City have seen it all, but they probably weren't ready for this. A man stopped in the middle of a busy sidewalk to give a full, tearful 10-minute eulogy for a pigeon he had just witnessed get hit by a car. He even gathered a small, confused crowd. 64. A man in Chicago was arrested after climbing onto a multi-million-dollar abstract metal sculpture in a downtown public plaza. He wasn't protesting or making a statement. He had set up a small hibachi grill on its surface and was trying to cook hamburgers, telling the police it was the only shady spot he could find away from the sun. 65. A woman at a mall food court in New Jersey threatened to sue the entire establishment because the free samples being offered by a teriyaki chicken place were not, in her opinion, a substantial enough portion to constitute a full meal. The concept of sample was completely lost on her. 66. A man in Chicago, annoyed by a crack in the public sidewalk outside his house, decided to fix it himself. His solution was to fill the entire crack with expanding spray foam insulation. The result was a bizarre, lumpy, bright yellow tumor erupting from the sidewalk, making it 1,000 times more hazardous and forcing the city to replace the whole concrete slab. 67. Here's one that's short, sweet, and unbelievably dumb. A woman was spotted on her front porch using a gas-powered leaf blower to dry her hair. The noise was deafening and the results were, to put it mildly, windswept. 68. Nothing says, "I respect civic duty" like this. A man in Vermont showed up to pay his property taxes at the town hall with a wheelbarrow filled with over $5,000 worth of pennies. He claimed it was a form of protest and demanded they count every single one by hand. They did. 69. In a bizarre scene in Miami, a man was arrested for repeatedly and violently wrestling with a parking meter. When police finally subdued him, he explained that he had put a quarter in, it didn't register, and he was trying to get his money back from the machine. 70. The highways of America are for transport, not for cookouts. A couple on a Texas interstate was pulled over for a truly unbelievable moving violation. They were having a full-blown barbecue with a lit charcoal grill on the back of a moving flatbed truck, arguing that it was no different than having a picnic in a park. 71. There's a certain logic to this if you don't think about it at all. A man in Wisconsin wanting to clear the snow off his roof decided the best tool for the job was a flamethrower. It was incredibly effective at removing the snow, and equally effective at removing a large portion of his roof shingles along with it. 72. A woman in a California grocery store held up the checkout line for 10 minutes, arguing that she should get a discount on a dozen eggs because one of them was slightly smaller than the others. She demanded to speak to a manager to negotiate the price of that single, allegedly undersized egg. 73. Sometimes a plan is so stupid it loops back around to almost being brilliant. A man in Florida, wanting to avoid a DUI checkpoint, called 911 to report a fake armed robbery several miles away, hoping to divert all the police officers. They sent one car to the fake robbery and left everyone else at the checkpoint to arrest him. 74. A man in New York City, deciding his car needed a wash but unwilling to pay for one, pried open a public fire hydrant with a huge wrench. He not only created a 30-foot geyser that flooded the entire street and stopped traffic for blocks, but was also filmed trying to calmly scrub his sedan with a sponge amidst the utter chaos. 75. A new level of entitlement was unlocked at a public swimming pool in Arizona. A woman demanded a full refund for her entry fee because, in her words, the water was too wet. She repeated this phrase multiple times, apparently believing water could exist in some other state while still being in a swimming pool. 76. Some people will go to incredible lengths to prove a point. A man in Chicago, furious about getting a parking ticket, paid the $75 fine by painstakingly folding 75 individual $1 bills into tiny, intricate origami pigs and delivering them to the city clerk's office. 77. A beautiful story of miscommunication with technology. An elderly man in a big box store was seen yelling angrily at a self-checkout machine. He was trying to use his television remote control to scan his items, getting progressively angrier that the scanner wasn't beeping. 78. Here's a quick one that captures the spirit of our times. A teenager was caught trying to use a get-out-of-jail-free card from a Monopoly game to try and get out of a real-life shoplifting charge. The arresting officer was reportedly too amused to be angry. 79. Why steal a car when you can just ask for it? A man in Oregon walked up to a woman in a parking lot, explained he had left his keys in his other pants, and asked if he could just borrow her car for a few hours. He seemed genuinely offended when she screamed and called the police instead of handing over her keys. 80. The line between performance art and public nuisance is thin. A man in New York City proved this by dressing up as a tree, standing motionless in the middle of a busy crosswalk for over an hour, and causing a massive traffic jam. His explanation? He was protesting deforestation. 81. A man in Ohio called 911 in a complete panic, demanding immediate police and paramedic response. The emergency? He had gotten his head stuck in the small opening of a decorative chain-link fence while trying to retrieve a dropped potato chip. Rescue crews had to use the jaws of life to free him, all for a single lost chip. 82. A driver in San Francisco got his car stuck on the famously crooked Lombard Street. Not because of the turns, but because he tried to drive up it, backwards. He believed it would be easier on the transmission and refused to believe otherwise, even as a tow truck was being called. 83. A true innovator in the field of laziness. A man was seen riding one of the airport's moving walkways, while also riding a motorized suitcase. He was literally using a machine to transport him while he was on another machine designed to transport him, achieving a new level of motion with minimal effort. 84. Never underestimate the public's ability to misunderstand science. A woman at a hardware store in Minnesota was caught trying to return a bag of soil, claiming it was defective because nothing would grow in it. She had, by her own admission, just left the sealed bag on her counter for 3 weeks waiting for plants to appear. 85. A shoplifter in Washington, D.C. had a brilliant disguise. He covered his entire face and head in thick layers of duct tape. It was a flawless plan, except for two things. First, he couldn't see. Second, when the police caught him, it was incredibly painful to remove. 86. Sometimes you just have to admire the audacity. A man in a Las Vegas casino was caught trying to pay for his $1,000 hotel bill with a giant stack of poker chips from a different casino across the street. He argued that money is money and didn't understand the problem. 87. A moment of pure chaos at a gas station in Florida. A woman, convinced her car was about to explode because the check engine light came on, jumped out of her car at the pump and sprayed the entire engine bay with a fire extinguisher, covering it in white foam. The engine, of course, was perfectly fine. 88. There are bold criminals, and then there's this guy. A man stole a police car in Chicago and immediately turned on the sirens and started pulling people over, pretending to be a real cop and giving them fake tickets. He was caught when he tried to pull over an actual on-duty detective. 89. When a restaurant offers bottomless coffee, there are implied limits. A man in a Colorado diner tested those limits by bringing in his own giant 2-gallon thermos and demanding they fill it up for the price of a single cup. He claimed their advertising was legally binding. 90. The instinct to fish is a powerful one, but for a man in Philadelphia, the definition of a fishing spot was extremely flexible. He was arrested for trying to fish in a shallow, decorative fountain outside an office building. His bait? A single Cheeto tied to a piece of dental floss. He was still waiting for a bite when police arrived. 91. The gym is supposed to be a place of self-improvement. For one man in Ohio, it was a place of baffling innovation. He was caught trying to move his new mini fridge home from his car by putting it on a running treadmill and just letting the belt carry it towards the gym's exit. The staff was not supportive of his new workout plan. 92. During a Major League Baseball game in Boston, a fan, desperate to catch a foul ball, completely misjudged its trajectory. He leapt dramatically over a row of seats and ended up tumbling headfirst into a giant condiment cart, landing squarely in the industrial-sized tub of relish, ruining the game, the relish, and his dignity in front of 40,000 people. 93. A pet store is a place of joy, unless you're the employee who had to handle this return. A woman tried to bring back a goldfish because, and this is a direct quote, "it doesn't do anything." She was genuinely disappointed that the fish wasn't performing tricks or acknowledging her presence in a more entertaining way. 94. This is a story of taking things far too literally. A tourist in a Buffalo, New York restaurant, after ordering a plate of buffalo wings, sent them back to the kitchen in outrage. She complained to the manager that she had been deceived because the wings were clearly from a chicken, not a bison. 95. The U.S. Postal Service has seen some strange packages, but this one stopped them in their tracks. A man tried to mail a standard bowling ball by simply writing the address on the side of it with a Sharpie and slapping a bunch of stamps directly onto its surface. He argued it was sturdy enough to not need a box. 96. Sometimes an act is so pure in its stupidity that it becomes a work of art. In a Chicago park, a man was seen trying to feed a sandwich to a bronze statue of a famous historical figure. When a passerby asked what he was doing, he mumbled, "He looked hungry." 97. Here's a legal mastermind for you. A defendant in an Oregon court, on trial for stealing a rare comic book, decided to represent himself. His brilliant defense strategy? He brought the actual stolen comic book to court to show the jury that its condition was so poor, it wasn't even worth stealing in the first place. 98. There are two types of car owners in this world. Those who know not to take a convertible through an automatic car wash, and the guy in Arizona who did exactly that. He was seen in a state of pure shock as brushes and jets of water completely flooded the interior of his car, all while the top was down. 99. A man in California embraced the future by trying to have a single taco delivered to his friend across the street, using a commercial drone. The flight lasted approximately 15 seconds before the drone, taco, and all crashed directly into the side of a passing city bus. Progress has its price. 100. We've all fought with a shopping cart whose wheels are locked. But a shopper in New Jersey took that fight to a new level. After realizing the cart wouldn't leave the designated store area, he attempted to lift the fully loaded 200-pound cart and carry it to his car, getting about 5 feet before collapsing. 101. One man in Nevada attempted to fix a flat tire using nothing but raw determination and a profound misunderstanding of physics. He was found on the side of a highway with no jack and no spare, on his hands and knees, with his mouth on the valve stem, trying to inflate the massive truck tire, with his own breath. So next time you catch yourself doing something dumb in public, just remember, you're among legends. Absolute, glitter-in-the-water supply, taco-by drone, microwave sock-warming legends. Now, your turn. What's the most unhinged, jaw-dropping thing you've actually seen someone do in public? Tell us in the comments. The race for the honorary 102nd slot is officially open. And if these moments made you laugh, gasp, or rethink that one time you tried to deep fry a frozen turkey, hit like, smash subscribe, and stick around. The stupidity never stops. Neither do we.